I had one question, but if he's not done, that's fine.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Oh, the question that I had to do with some detail, perhaps. There are three basic outcomes identified. Two have to do with the children, the young children, and one has to do with the parents, with the, I assume, moms in most cases. And the metric for the parents is simply that a goal of 100% of the, I don't know who to look at here, is it? Seniors graduating. But if there are metrics for the moms or the parents in the school, not everybody becomes a senior. I didn't know if there was anything that you did about truancy and retention of all those parents in school, because that one metric of just those that happen to be seniors graduating is, if you've got you had 6 seniors, I think, last year out of 40 students or parents and students, and whether there were efforts being made for the others as well to get them that far.
Please.
Thank you for that question. This is a very confusing program for a lot of people. It's a collaboration between us and the school district, and so our main focus on the program is with the children and their outcomes, but we do partner with the school to address the teen concerns. Our part of it is more in an informatory manner and participating in the group sessions. The school's part of that is to look at the truancy and the grades and that sort of thing. We do enter into contracts with the girls, and if they are not meeting their requirements, then they're sent on to the social worker for assistance. And if we consistently have problems with attendance or grades, and it's typically attendance, then they might be asked to leave the program to make room for another person coming in. And so those 40 girls, sometimes that is some turnover throughout the year with the girls moving on. So the metric is however many seniors that we had during that particular year that made it all the way through their senior year and graduated and obtained their high school diploma.
And you've simply chosen that that's where you would measure
That's
your
the
part of
easiest
that.
for us, because that's what we can measure, but we do not monitor all of the attendance and those things. That's the part the school takes on. Does that help?
I think it does. I simply looked at, keeping moms in school all year. Each mom
Yes,
would
absolutely.
make would perhaps reflect a little more the impact on the kids.
Okay, we'll take
But
that
that's
into
your
consideration.
call.
Thank you, I appreciate
And
it.
I appreciate, I did look and see that your focus really was on the development of the kids, as it
Yes.
should be, because that's what you do.
Yeah, our
So-
goal is to get the girls in there and participating as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mr. Schmidt, you had a question?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments with regards to this grant? Seeing none? LULAC.
LULAC had 15 out of 15 on city priorities, 10 out of 10 scope of projects, 5 out of 5 on outcomes, 5 out of 10 on duplication, 20 out of 20 on outcomes from prior grants, 10 out of 10 on effective management, 10 out of 10 on client input, 1 out of 5 on org leadership, 5 out of 5 on past grant administration, 0 out of 5 on government partnerships, and 3 out of 5 on private partnerships.
Questions from the committee? Comments from the committee? Ms. Hiller?
Go ahead.
Nope.
Well, again, this was one where last year, when we considered the senior centers, we were told that there was a major change that was to happen in the transportation programs, and some consolidation of services had been requested, and it was a little unclear to me what the how many people were involved in the program versus how many trips, and outcomes are hard to measure on strictly transportation, I know. And I didn't see the meals and van costs included in the budget, so I wasn't sure, that it didn't appear anyway that the cost of purchasing vans or gasoline or vehicle maintenance were included in the budget. So just sort of a variety of questions on this one, but because there's only
approach the microphone, please, to answer these questions.
I can ask them one at a time.
That would be great.
How many actual people do these numbers of participation reflect? Clients?
Okay. We have about 200 individuals that we serve.
Okay.
Some of those are served on a daily basis. Some are served periodically throughout the year.
Because you had some numbers, for instance, what's your typical attendance at a meal that's at the center?
Individuals coming to the center is around 20, 25 on an average day. And just to make it clear, the meals at our center are Meals on Wheels.
Right.
That's not part of our program. We do not count any of that as
Okay.
a unit.
Okay. In your budget, is what's the 25,500 for local transportation?
That consists of fuel costs.
It is?
Maintenance costs, yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure where the van drivers were, cause you had a total of 4 staff, I think, right? Director
Three.
and 2 drivers and-
3, payroll would all be in salaries.
Okay, so all those people are in that 59,000 line.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
If I look.
On page 26 of the footnote, or the attachment 5,
Uh-huh.
the bottom comment regarding local transportation indicates that it's gasoline costs and van maintenance expenses.
Gotcha. Thank you.
For discussion purposes, at this point, we're going really deep into the evaluation of the grant.
Right.
And I'm kind of concerned that we're deviating from what the goal was to do in this process.
And if I can ask one more, the issue would be what happened with the senior centers and where does LULAC fit in the issue of retooling the way the transportation services were managed?
Okay. The 3 senior centers worked together to put a grant, first they put together a transportation pilot project that would put in place a dispatch one-call center, and we solicited a grant to fund one person, a $5,000 grant to fund one person for a pilot project of like a 3-month time period. The first grant that we put together for that was declined. We did not receive funding for it. We put together a second grant, and that was declined. And we put together a third grant just this spring and have not heard back. I believe they probably would notify us late summer as to whether we received that grant or not. And that project is not something that we can proceed with without funding to support that.
So this is
Project.
still the way it's been done
It's-
in the past?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we're still working towards getting the funding to implement that pilot project. In the meantime, the 3 senior centers are working together to coordinate medical transportation trips and using a web service to all 3 enter that information. And that is that's been going on for a couple months. And the LULAC Senior Center, because of staffing changes, hasn't been able to participate in that coordination in the last couple of months. But the Pappin's Landing and East Topeka have worked together on that, and it has seen some good results. I don't know how much has been able to be coordinated, but this is our alternative to the one-call dispatch center not being funded yet.
Gotcha.
It's our way of trying to still coordinate in the meantime.
Okay.
Thank
that
you
help?
so much, yes, and from me, I think if those sorts of trends could be reflected here so that when these come to staff and to the council members, we don't need that extra expert out in the community. You've let us know what trends we're changing and how you're addressing those. I think it helps us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments, Mr. Schmidt? All right, next.
Okay, Topeka Youth Project, jobs for young adults, 15 out of 15, city priorities, 10 out of 10, scope of project, 5 out of 5 on outcomes clear, 10 out of 10 on duplication, 10 out of 20 on outcomes on prior grants, 10 out of 10 on effective management, 10 out of 10 client input, 5 out of 5 on org leadership, 4 out of 5 on past grant administration, 0 out of 5 on government partnerships, and 5 out of 5 on private partnerships.
Any questions with regards to this application, the scoring?
I think this is one of the ones that's got problems with the budget. And I wasn't sure why it appeared that they were switching from CDBG or from general fund to CDBG, yet there's an indication in the budget that maybe,
Excuse me, Ms. Hiller.
yeah,
For purposes of hearing, could the door be closed, please? There's too much noise outside. It's very distracting. We may proceed, thank you.
yeah. I wasn't sure we even needed people to specify whether they were going after general fund or CDBG, just for future, because the city has made those decisions after the fact in the past. But I think the numbers weren't working for me here.
Ms. Hiller, is this more of a policy for the city question that we can address with staff? Or
I'm concerned that there might be an error. Perhaps they have some city funding from another source. You do? Okay,
Mhm.
okay,
Ms. Wong?
Yes.
Would you like to approach the microphone?
great. Great,
Do you
great.
think that helped?
Yeah,
I think it will serve us well.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready. Did that answer your question, Karen, or no?
I think so, because otherwise if whatever you decided about
Yes.
moving it from one to the other, I was a little concerned because the 37 was roughly the total of what you got last year from general fund. this
Well,
year.
I was more or less advised that I needed to go to CDBG this year. That's the only reason. We've always come out of the general fund.
I saw that, so,
I have not advised that.
okay.
Okay.
Well, Rochelle and I talked about it.
He said if they would be eligible for CDBG, then they would automatically be eligible for general fund,
Sure.
but not
Vice
the
versa,
opposite.
right.
Mhm.
So if I went in under the general fund, that's all I could do. If I did CDBG and it wasn't, it could come out of the general fund. That's the
I think,
reason. Fine.
you've clarified it. I think
Okay.
it's a technicality at this point that will
Okay.
address probably how the budget's laid out next
Okay.
year.
Okay,
Thanks.
Yes.
any other questions for this organization? Since we have Ms. Wong on the microphone.
I'm good.
Thank you, Ms. Wong.
Thanks.
Congratulations on getting 5 out of 5 on the organizational leadership.
Ding.
Okay, to our final application to be evaluated today.
All right, YWCA Girls on the Run, 15 out of 15 city priorities, 10 out of 10 scope of project, 5 out of 5 outcomes being clear, 10 out of 10 on duplication, 10 out of 20 on prior grants, 10 out of 10 on effective management, 10 out of 10 client input, 3 out of 5 on org leadership, 1 out of 5 on past grant administration, 5 out of 5 on government partnerships, and 5 out of 5 on private partnerships for a total of 84.
Could we address the issue with the past grant administration?
Sure. Again, it was previous HESG extensions that were requested.
So not these grants, but a different.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for this program from the body?
I'm gonna guess I know the answer to this one, but organizational. Girls on the Run, I have a
Gender.
feeling I know that.
Yeah, it's 100% women, so that's the gender.
Ms. Hiller, any comments or questions with regards to this grant?
No.
Okay, well, at this point, this tentatively wraps up the first tier of grants, the highest scoring grants from this application for the city of Topeka. At this point, I would look at my colleagues and I would ask if we are still inclined to approve by vote tentatively the allocation by rating, which would then in turn, as we agreed in the beginning, allow a $251,958,000 allocation, leaving $53,000 to allocate for tier 2.
53,925.
Just to be exact.
Thank you, sir. So do I have a motion?
I move what you said.
Second.
Okay, all
You got-
those,
You got that right.
all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, this has been a wonderful experience of being able to just go through the process and
Miss-
discuss all these things with the organizations.
I apologize. I did invite the tier 1 applicant for emergency aid here today. Catholic Charities was the only emergency assistant. Are we-
Okay, could you pass those
Sure.
out since we do have some time?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so at this point, here is the final application that we're going
Same
to look
thing.
at.
Okay.
Same process, out of the $407,000, as you know, 25% of these were gonna be allocated to emergency aid. When we looked at the highest scoring applications, Agency 1 scored in the 85 percentile. Ms. Wright, would you like to go over this application?
Sure, this one's a little bit different because we only had one agency score in that top tier. So if we did 75%, they would get 76,313, which is considerably more than they requested. But if we continued with that same process, that's what it would be. And then option 2 is to split it 50-50, and then option 3, of course, is to go until the money runs out on the 3 agencies that are in the bottom tier as well.
At this point in time, we are doing it with the organizations by the percentage that they got on their score. So that would put this organization, which requested $30,000, at $25,500. For the looks of this on this score, this is a brand-new grant that we have never funded, which is one of the things that we wanted to accomplish with this metrics, the way, and it's being scored rather than on the 100%, which would the other organizations be scored at, it's being ranked at an 80. Is that correct?
The 85%?
No, that the scoring, instead of coming out of 100, it's coming out of 80 because it's a new grant and there's no prior,
This is correct.
okay.
Mhm.
Right.
Apologize.
And at this point, because there's only one organization, I think that we're safe to say that it's Catholic Charities.
Yes,
'Cause
and
they
I'm
were
passing
also
that around. I
invited.
apologize, I gave you the wrong one.
And then we have
Oh, score sheet. I'm losing it.
It's been a long meeting, you're allowed.
There we go.
Are there any questions of this organization at this point in time?
Was she gonna go through the rankings?
Sure. Catholic Charities, 15 out of 15 on city priorities, 10 out of 10 on scope of project, 5 out of 5 on outcomes being clear, 0 out of 10 on duplication, 0 out of 20 on outcomes prior grants, but we did not count that against their 100, so that was null. 10 out of 10 on effective management, 10 out of 10 client input, 5 out of 5 on org leadership, 5 out of 5 past grant administration, 3 out of 5 on government partnerships, and 5 out of 5 on private partnerships, for a total of 68 out of 80 on this one.
Okay. Ms. Hiller?
C,
We're here.
right here.
Let me look at at this
Wait,
again
wait,
for a
wait.
moment.
I need a better process.
This might be a matter of language. We've been really working on the outcomes. And so, as it's stated for the 3 outcomes proposed, one of which says to complete a financial assessment and receive budget counseling, that would be an activity rather than an outcome. So the outcome would be, you know, did they feel like they learned something? Did they have some things in mind that they were planning to implement? And then if there's longer term follow-up that they did implement to improve their financial management. 20% is still a high goal, I suppose, of getting clients to begin a banking relationship to support their financial goals. But, you know, what might be more meaningful is whether they sustained it and so on. I realize that for a short-term outcome, that's probably the best you can do, and just to get them in the door is a big deal, just to go through that process. But something to think about. I thought that the nutrition one, where it included pre and post tests of what did you know before you had your classes, and the goal being to increase knowledge, and then the measure being there as to whether they did, was a stronger outcome goal.
Any other comments or questions, Ms. Hiller?
No, thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
I'm okay.
Okay, so at this point, are we comfortable making the allocation based on the percentage, like we did with the other grants, or would it award $25,500 to this program?
So moved.
I have a bit of a problem with that because of the way that we allocated emergency aid. If we do this,
I would just encourage you to look at the bottom scores.
yeah, I know. But the top score is minus $4,500 off of what they requested.
Because they did, even though they were given the opportunity, they still scored an 85%, which is the same way that we measured the other grants. So they're being treated equally across the board.
If we don't have the number of applications, 2 things. If we don't have the number of applications, we don't need to allocate the money. We've always, I would assume, reserved that option. Second thing is, we had one in our prevention group that self-identified as both prevention and emergency aid, right?
Yes, we did. Which one was that?
And I haven't gone back to look at how we classified last time to see if people self-classified in the same quote bucket that we did when we came up with that 75-25 split. So before the next meeting, we could look at that. If you like.
I think we were the ones that classified.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
Because we do both. We provide emergency financial assistance.
Could you approach the microphone, please?
We being.
I'm sorry. Positive Connections, I think we identified as both, and that was because we actually do provide, we didn't request funding for both, although we can. But we do provide emergency financial assistance to keep people in their home, because we found if they're homeless, they become less adherent to their medications. We also provide a food pantry to supplement the community food pantries that have really high protein items and things like Boost and Ensure for people that cannot eat food.
Last year, I think the question that Ms. Hiller was getting at is, what pool did you apply under, preventative services or emergency aid?
Well,
We
last year they didn't
classified
have it classified.
Oh, we
that way.
classified them, okay.
Yeah.
Right, and it was out of that classification
Okay.
that we made that we.
And so when we were looking at how to classify, we actually classified as both because we do both, so. But we're primarily health, primarily counseling but we do have an emergency component to our program.
We lumped it under prevention because it's all staff salaries is what they're requesting funds for.
Right.
Good, thank you. Okay, so going back to that, are we comfortable in the place of saying allocation by percentage so that we could be in sync with all the other applications that we evaluated today? We have a motion.
I'm okay with doing that preliminarily,
Okay.
Might be a
Um,
winner, I think so.
It's- Sounds like a word. We're going to have a considerable,
Next meeting.
well, but I guess we can also, we have that 5% range to play with,
Between the two.
between the two also, so
Mhm.
that may be, so, yeah, I'm okay with that preliminary
Okay, so
allocation.
is that in form of a second for a motion so that we could effect the vote?
Seconded.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, that being said, we have successfully completed within the adequate time the first round of allocations. Again, I'm extremely complimentary of the staff with the amazing preparation they've done. And in addition to that, I'm very complimentary of the committee for the wonderful conversation and discussion that is being had today. At this point in time, are there any comments that would like to be said by anybody in the audience? Seeing none, does the committee have any closing comments?
See you tomorrow.
Echo your comments and his.
All right, that being said, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
It's his, yeah.